When did your childhood end? Mine ended on a Tuesday night when I was 9 years old, not gradually like most kids, but all at once, in the span of about 10 minutes that changed everything I thought I knew about the world. Up until that night, I'd had what you'd call a perfect childhood. My parents both worked late, so our neighbor Mrs. Patterson watched me after school most days. She was this sweet older lady who baked cookies and let me stay up past my bedtime watching cartoons. Everyone in our neighborhood loved Mrs. Patterson. She'd lived on our street for 30 years, always volunteering for block parties, bringing casseroles when people got sick. My mom called her a godsend because finding good childcare was nearly impossible. But there were these little things that started bothering me around month 3, things that seemed harmless at the time, but looking back, should have been massive red flags that something was very wrong. Like how she always made me wash my hands the second I walked through her door, even if they were already clean. And not just wash them, but scrub them with this special soap that smelled like hospitals and stung my skin. She had all these weird rules about where I could sit in her house. Only the blue chair in the living room, never the couch, never the kitchen table. She said the other furniture was too delicate for children. But I'd seen her own grandkids jumping all over everything when they visited. The strangest thing was how she acted when my parents called to check on me. She'd get this fake, cheerful voice that sounded nothing like her normal tone, almost like she was performing for an audience. And she was obsessed with my daily routine, had to know exactly what I'd eaten for lunch, what I'd done at school, who I'd talked to. She'd write everything down in this little notebook, which she claimed was to tell my parents later, but she never actually shared any of it with them. One afternoon, I got sick at school and came home early. Mrs. Patterson wasn't expecting me for another 2 hours. I let myself in through our back gate like always, planning to knock on her door. But when I got to her kitchen window, I could see inside, and she wasn't alone. There were 2 men I'd never seen before sitting at her table, and she was showing them photographs. Lots of photographs spread across the surface. I couldn't see what was in the pictures from my angle, but I could see Mrs. Patterson pointing at them and the men nodding and taking notes. One of them was wearing latex gloves like a doctor. When I knocked on her front door, it took her almost 5 minutes to answer, and when she did, she looked flustered and out of breath. The men were completely gone. She acted normal, but kept glancing toward her kitchen like she was worried about something. That night, I told my parents what I'd seen. They said Mrs. Patterson was probably just getting some repair work done and showing the men what needed to be fixed. It sounded perfectly reasonable. But the next day at school, my teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, asked me to stay after class. She said some people had been asking questions about me around the school, wanting to know my schedule and which door I usually left from. When I got to Mrs. Patterson's that afternoon, I decided to test something. I told her I'd forgotten my backpack at school and needed to go back to get it. She got this panicked look and insisted on driving me herself, which she'd never offered to do before. On the way back from school, I noticed she took a completely different route home, a longer route that went past the park and the shopping center. Like she was making sure we weren't being followed, or maybe making sure someone else could follow us. That night, instead of going straight to my room after my parents got home, I stayed up and listened to them talking in the kitchen. My mom was saying how grateful she was for Mrs. Patterson, how lucky we were to find someone so trustworthy and reliable. But then my dad said something that made my stomach drop. He mentioned he'd thought about getting a background check on her before we started the arrangement, but she'd been so highly recommended by neighbors that he'd decided it wasn't necessary. The next morning, I woke up early and looked out my bedroom window toward Mrs. Patterson's house. There was a white van parked in her driveway that I'd never seen before, and several men were loading boxes into the back of it. I got dressed quickly and snuck out through our backyard to get a closer look. That's when I saw what was really in those boxes, and I finally understood what Mrs. Patterson had actually been doing with me all those months. The boxes are full of photographs, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, spread across dozens of manila folders with dates written on the tabs. But they're not just any photographs, they're pictures of me. I freeze in place, my body going cold as I stare at the images. There I am, sleeping on Mrs. Patterson's couch, my mouth slightly open, completely unaware. Another shows me eating cookies at her kitchen table. There's one of me in her bathroom, washing my hands with that special soap. The realization hits me like a punch to the stomach. Every single photograph is of me, taken inside Mrs. Patterson's house. Some are from angles that don't make sense, from high corners of rooms or behind furniture places where no person could stand holding a camera. My hands shake as I reach for one of the folders. The men loading the boxes notice me in turn. They're wearing dark blue vests with yellow letters, FBI. One of them shouts something and starts moving toward me. I don't wait to hear what he's saying. I drop the folder, photographs spilling across the driveway, and run. My legs pump faster than they ever have before as I sprint back through our yard, through the gate, and into my house. Behind me, I hear car doors slamming and engines starting. "Mom! Dad!" I scream, bursting through our back door into the kitchen. My parents are both there, still in their pajamas, coffee mugs in hand. They look up, startled by my entrance and the panic in my voice. "What's wrong?" my mom asks, setting down her mug. "Why are you outside so early?" The words tumble out of me, fast and frantic. I tell them about the white van, the boxes, the photographs, about Mrs. Patterson and the men in her house yesterday, and how she'd been writing everything down in her notebook. My dad's face changes as I speak, his expression hardening into something I've never seen before. My mom's hands start to tremble so badly she has to set down her coffee mug. "Call the police," she tells my dad, her voice tight. Then she wraps her arms around me, holding me so tightly it almost hurts, but I don't mind. I want to be held right now. My dad grabs the phone, but before he can dial, there's a knock at our front door. We all freeze, staring at each other. "Stay here," my dad says, his voice low and serious. He moves to the door, while my mom pulls me further into the kitchen, positioning herself between me and whatever's coming. I hear my dad talking to someone, his voice tense but controlled. Then he calls for us. "It's okay," he says, though he doesn't sound convinced. "It's the police." The next hour passes in a blur. Our living room fills with people, uniformed officers, men and women in suits showing badges, someone who says they're from child services. They ask me questions. So many questions. And I answer as best I can, describing everything I've noticed about Mrs. Patterson over the past few months. A tall man with gray hair and tired eyes introduces himself as Detective Morales. He sits across from me, my parents flanking me on the couch like guards. "You're very brave," he tells me, his voice gentle but serious, "and very observant. Most kids wouldn't have noticed the things you did." "What was she doing?" I ask, the question that's been burning inside me since I saw those photographs. Why did she have all those pictures of me? Detective Morales exchanges a look with my parents. My mom nods slightly, her hand tightening around mine. "Mrs. Patterson," he says carefully, "was part of a group of people who take children. They find kids they think nobody will miss right away, or whose disappearance might not raise immediate alarms, and they sell them." End quote. "Like trafficking," my dad says, his voice cracking. "Human trafficking." The word hangs in the air, heavy and horrible. I've heard it before on the news, but never thought it could touch my life, my neighborhood, my safe little world. "The men you saw yesterday," Detective Morales continues, "were undercover agents. We've been watching Mrs. Patterson for weeks, after connecting her to several missing children cases. Those photographs were evidence she was gathering, documenting your routines, your behaviors, planning for when to." He stops, seeming to reconsider his words. "For when to take me." I finish for him, my voice small. He nods grimly. "The soap she made you use? We've sent it to our lab, but preliminary tests show it contained a mild sedative. Not enough to make you sleepy right away, but it would build up in your system, make you easier to control if she needed to move you quickly." My mom makes a strangled sound, pulling me closer to her side. "She was planning to take me?" I ask, though I already know the answer. "Yes," Detective Morales says. "Based on what we found in her home and the communications we've intercepted, she was planning to move within the next week or two. Your teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, actually helped us. She reported suspicious men asking questions about you at school, which connected to another case we were working on. I think about Mrs. Patterson's notebook, how she wrote down everything I told her about school, about my friends, about which door I used to leave the building. I think about the fake, cheerful voice she used with my parents, how she'd been studying me all these months, planning to steal me away from everything I knew. We got her," Detective Morales says firmly, seeing the fear on my face. "She's in custody, and so are several of her associates. You're safe now." But I don't feel safe. I don't think I'll ever feel safe again. The world I woke up to this morning isn't the same one I thought I knew yesterday. Mrs. Patterson, the sweet old lady who baked cookies and tucked me in when I was tired, had been planning to make me disappear. The special soap that stung my skin had been drugging me, slowly, methodically. The rules about where I could sit were to keep me visible to hidden cameras. My childhood ended that Tuesday night, but it wasn't just the 10 minutes that changed everything. It was the months of preparation I never saw, the danger hiding behind a grandmother's smile, the evil lurking just next door while my parents and I lived our lives, completely unaware of how close I came to vanishing forever. The next few days pass in a blur of police officers, FBI agents, and social workers coming in and out of our house. I hear my parents talking in hushed voices when they think I'm asleep, using words like trauma and safety protocols. I pretend not to notice how my dad checks the locks 3 times each night now, or how my mom's eyes fill with tears whenever she looks at me. Detective Morales returns with a female agent named Ramirez, who specializes in cases involving children. They sit with me at our kitchen table while my parents hover nearby, ready to step in if I get too upset. "We found hidden cameras throughout Mrs. Patterson's house," Agent Ramirez explains gently. She places photographs on the table, not the ones of me, but images showing tiny black devices disguised as smoke detectors, wall outlets, and even hidden inside the bathroom air freshener. "That's why she never let me use certain rooms," I whisper, the realization making my stomach twist, "and why I could only sit in the blue chair." Detective Morales nods. "The blue chair was positioned perfectly for maximum camera coverage. She was documenting your behaviors, your reactions, building a profile." My mom makes a choked sound from behind me. I feel her hand on my shoulder squeezing too tight, but I don't mind. "What about her notebook?" I ask. "She was always writing in it." Agent Ramirez exchanges a glance with Detective Morales before answering. "We found several notebooks. They contain detailed information about your daily routines, your likes and dislikes, even notes about when you seemed most tired or compliant. She wrote down that I'm afraid of the dark," I say, remembering how Mrs. Patterson always asked such specific questions, "and that I get stomach aches when I'm nervous." "She was identifying vulnerabilities," Detective Morales explains, "things she could exploit if she needed to control you quickly." My dad speaks up, his voice tight. "What about the men my child saw at her house, the ones looking at the photographs?" "They were undercover agents," Agent Ramirez says. "We'd been monitoring Mrs. Patterson for several weeks after connecting her to a larger trafficking network. Those men were documenting evidence. Mrs. Rodriguez knew something was wrong," I say suddenly, remembering my teacher's worried face. "She told me people had been asking questions about me at school." Detective Morales leans forward. Your teacher was instrumental in this case. She reported 2 men who came to the school claiming to be educational consultants. They were asking specific questions about you and several other students, your schedules, which doors you used to exit the building, whether you walked home alone. Mrs. Rodriguez reported it to the principal. Agent Ramirez continues, who contacted us because of an alert we'd put out to schools in the area after the disappearance of another child 3 months ago. My parents exchange horrified glances. Other children? My mom asks, her voice barely audible. Agent Ramirez hesitates before answering. We've confirmed 3 children have gone missing from neighboring communities over the past 18 months. All around your age, she adds, looking at me. All with working parents who needed after-school care. We've been investigating this trafficking ring for over a year, Detective Morales says. Mrs. Patterson appears to have been a scout, someone who identifies potential targets and gathers intelligence. My dad stands up suddenly, pacing across our kitchen. How did we not see this? Everyone in the neighborhood recommended her. She's lived here for 30 years. Those recommendations were largely fabricated, Agent Ramirez says quietly. We've interviewed several neighbors who claim they never actually used her services, but were pressured into providing references by Mrs. Patterson herself. That night, I wake up screaming. In my nightmare, Mrs. Patterson is standing over my bed, her wrinkled hands reaching for me, that fake, cheerful voice saying, "It's time to go on a little trip." My parents rush in, my mom gathering me into her arms while my dad checks the windows and closet. She can't hurt you, my mom whispers against my hair. She's locked up. You're safe. But I don't feel safe. I keep seeing her face, keep hearing her voice, keep feeling those hands that patted my head and gave me cookies that might have been drugged too. The next day, my parents take me to see Dr. Chen, a child psychologist with kind eyes and a voice that never rises above a gentle murmur. Your brain is trying to process what happened, she explains after I tell her about my nightmares. It's working through the fear of what almost happened to you. That's normal and healthy, even though it feels terrible right now. Will the nightmares ever stop? I ask. Yes, she says with such certainty that I almost believe her. But it will take time. Your brain needs to understand that you're safe now. When we get home, Agent Ramirez is waiting with new information. She asks to speak with my parents privately, but I refuse to leave. After what happened, I don't want to be kept in the dark about anything. We've been analyzing Mrs. Patterson's computer and phone records, she tells us. She was communicating with at least 7 other individuals involved in this trafficking operation. We've identified 4 so far. What about her grandchildren? I ask suddenly, remembering the kids who occasionally visited. The ones who were allowed to jump on the furniture when I couldn't. The room goes silent. Agent Ramirez looks at my parents, and something passes between them, a silent communication that makes my stomach drop. They weren't her grandchildren, Agent Ramirez finally says. Based on our investigation, we believe they were children being temporarily held by the network, Mrs. Patterson was assessing them, determining their value and compliance level before they were transported elsewhere. My mom makes a sound like she's been punched. My dad's face goes completely white. Where are they now? I ask, my voice small. We're looking for them, Agent Ramirez says, and I can tell by the way her eyes shift away that she doesn't have good news. We're doing everything we can. That night, I overhear my parents talking in their bedroom, my mom crying as she says, "It could have been our baby. She was going to take our baby." My dad's voice breaks as he responds, I know, but she didn't. We got lucky. I don't feel lucky. I feel like the world has tilted on its axis, revealing monsters hiding in plain sight. Mrs. Patterson wasn't just a neighbor or a babysitter. She was a predator who spent months studying me, preparing to steal me away from everything I knew and loved. And the scariest part is how good she was at hiding it behind cookies and stories and that grandmotherly smile that never quite reached her eyes. The FBI office is nothing like I imagined. Instead of the sleek, high-tech rooms from TV shows, I'm sitting in what looks like a regular conference room with beige walls and uncomfortable chairs. Agent Ramirez sits beside me while my parents wait anxiously in the hallway. They wanted to be in here with me, but the agents explained that my reactions might be more genuine if I wasn't worried about upsetting them. You're doing great, Agent Ramirez says, her voice calm and steady. We're going to show you some photographs of men who might have been associated with Mrs. Patterson. All you need to do is tell us if you recognize any of them. I nod, my hands fidgeting in my lap. The door opens and Detective Morales walks in with a folder. He places 6 photographs on the table in front of me, arranging them in a neat row. Take your time, he says. I look at each face carefully. The first 4 men are strangers. I've never seen them before. But when I reach the 5th photograph, my stomach drops. That's him, I whisper, pointing at the man with gray hair and thick-rimmed glasses. He came to Mrs. Patterson's house at least once a week. She called him her nephew, but they never really acted like family. Detective Morales and Agent Ramirez exchange a glance. Are you sure? Agent Ramirez asks. Yes, he always brought her groceries in those fancy paper bags from the expensive store across town, and I hesitate, remembering something that hadn't seemed important before. He was the one who brought the special soap. I saw him give her a new bottle once when I was getting my backpack. Detective Morales slides the photograph into a separate folder. This is very helpful. You're doing exactly what we need. I stare at the table, a question burning inside me. Did he know about what she was going to do to me? We believe he was heavily involved in the organization. Agent Ramirez says carefully. He wasn't just bringing groceries, Ethan. He was checking on Mrs. Patterson's progress with you. The thought makes me feel sick. All those times he'd smiled at me, asked about school, commented on how much I was growing. He'd been evaluating me like merchandise. 3 days later, my mom gets a call that makes her face go pale. She covers the phone with her hand and whispers something to my dad that I can't hear. They both look at me with that worried expression. I've come to hate the one that means they're trying to decide how much to tell me. What is it? I ask, already knowing it has something to do with Mrs. Patterson. My dad sits next to me on the couch. Mrs. Patterson has requested to speak with you. From jail, my voice cracks on the last word. Yes, my mom says, sitting on my other side. She says she wants to explain herself to you, but you don't have to do this, sweetheart. No one would expect you to. But I know immediately that I want to go, need to go. The nightmares won't stop until I understand why me, why our family, why she pretended to care about me while planning to steal me away. I want to talk to her, I say firmly. My parents argue against it that night, their voices carrying through the walls as I pretend to sleep. My mom thinks it will traumatize me further. My dad worries Mrs. Patterson might say something to manipulate me. But in the end, they agree to let me make this choice. The juvenile detention center where they're holding Mrs. Patterson looks like a hospital from the outside. Agent Ramirez meets us in the parking lot, explaining the rules. I'll speak to Mrs. Patterson through protective glass. There will be guards and agents present at all times, and we can leave whenever I want. You're in control here, she reminds me. Not her. The visiting room is small and cold. One wall is made entirely of thick glass with a metal counter running along the bottom. There's a phone receiver on our side that connects to one on the other side. When they bring Mrs. Patterson in, I almost don't recognize her. Without her flowery dresses and carefully styled white hair, she looks smaller, older. Her prison uniform hangs loose on her frame, and without makeup, her face is pale and lined. She shuffles to her seat, handcuffs clinking as she moves. Our eyes meet through the glass, and for a moment, neither of us speaks. Then she reaches for her phone, and after a nod from Agent Ramirez, I pick up mine. Thank you for coming, Mrs. Patterson says, her voice exactly the same as I remember that gentle grandmother tone that now sends chills down my spine. I didn't think your parents would allow it. Why did you want to see me? I ask, proud that my voice doesn't shake. She looks down at her hands. I wanted to tell you that I did care about you. In my own way. That wasn't all pretend. Anger flares inside me, hot and sudden. You were going to take me away from my family. Yes, she admits, not denying it. But I convinced myself it was for your own good, that you deserved better than parents who were never home. That's not true, I say fiercely. My parents love me. Mrs. Patterson sighs. I know that now. But at the time, after my husband died 5 years ago, I was so alone. That's when they found me, the people in the organization. They said I could help children who needed better homes, better lives. They made it sound noble. But you were selling kids, I say bluntly. She flinches as if I've slapped her. Not at first. At first, I really thought I was helping place children with wealthy families who would give them opportunities. By the time I realized what was really happening, I was already in too deep. They had evidence of my involvement. I couldn't get out. I lean forward, the question that's been haunting me finally finding voice. Why me? Why did you pick me? Mrs. Patterson's eyes meet mine, and for the first time, I see genuine regret there. Your parents' work schedules. You were alone so often, and no one checked on you for hours. You were convenient, she pauses, and you were trusting. Kind. You never questioned why I had so many rules or why I wrote everything down. You just accepted it. The truth hits me like a physical blow. My own nature, the things that made me who I am, had made me a target. I want you to know, Mrs. Patterson continues, her voice dropping lower, that I was starting to have doubts about you specifically. I told them I needed more time. That's why they sent those men to check on my progress. They were getting impatient. My dad shifts beside me, his hand finding mine and squeezing tight. Did you ever think about what would happen to me? I ask, after you took me? Mrs. Patterson's face crumples. I tried not to. It was easier that way. I stand up suddenly, unable to hear any more. I'm done. As Agent Ramirez leads us toward the exit, Mrs. Patterson calls out one last thing that makes me freeze in my tracks. I'm sorry, Ethan. For what it's worth, I'm helping them find the others now, the children who weren't as lucky as you. In the car ride home, I stare out the window in silence. The world outside looks exactly the same. People walking dogs, kids riding bikes, neighbors watering lawns, but everything has changed. I've changed. Are you okay, sweetheart? My mom asks, turning to look at me from the front seat. No, I answer honestly, but I think I will be. And it's true. Seeing Mrs. Patterson like that small, old, afraid has shifted something inside me. She's not the monster from my nightmares anymore. She's just a sad, lonely woman who made terrible choices that almost destroyed my life. I know I'll never be the same person I was before all this happened. That innocent 9-year-old who trusted everyone and felt safe everywhere is gone forever. But maybe that's not entirely bad. Maybe seeing the darkness in the world will help me recognize it faster next time, help me protect others from what almost happened to me. As we pull into our driveway, I make a silent promise to myself. I won't let this break me. I won't let Mrs. Patterson and her trafficking ring take anything more from me than they already have. They almost stole my future. I won't let them steal my present too. The trial begins in early spring, almost 6 months after that Tuesday morning when I discovered the photographs. I sit in a courtroom that feels too big and too cold, my parents flanking me like protective sentinels. Mrs. Patterson sits at the defendant's table, looking even smaller than she did in the detention center. She doesn't turn around to look at me, but I can see her shoulders tense when we enter. You don't have to do this, my mom whispers, squeezing my hand. The prosecutor said your written statement would be enough. I want to, I insist. I need to. When they call my name, my legs feel wobbly as I walk to the witness stand. The judge, a woman with kind eyes and silver-streaked hair, explains that I can take breaks whenever I need them. The prosecutor asks me to tell the court what happened, starting with when Mrs. Patterson began watching me after school. I speak clearly. Just like we practiced with Agent Ramirez, I described the special soap that stung my skin, the rules about where I could sit, how she documented everything in her notebook. I explained finding the photographs of myself sleeping, eating, even using the bathroom. When I describe the white van and the boxes full of surveillance photos, my voice only wavers once. Mrs. Patterson stares at the table the entire time, never meeting my eyes. And did you recognize anyone else involved in these activities? The prosecutor asks. Yes, I say, pointing to a man sitting with the other defendants. That's the man who visited Mrs. Patterson regularly, the one who brought the special soap. By the time the trial ends 3 weeks later, 12 people are convicted for their roles in the trafficking ring. Mrs. Patterson testifies against all of them, describing the entire operation in exchange for a reduced sentence. She'll still spend at least 15 years in prison. She helped us locate 3 missing children. Detective Morales tells my parents when it's all over. Without her cooperation, we might never have found them. I want to feel good about that, but I can't stop thinking about the children they didn't find. We moved 2 months after the trial. Our new house is in a different school district, 30 miles away from our old neighborhood. It has a security system with cameras covering every entrance and motion sensors that send alerts to my parents' phones. My bedroom window only opens 6 inches, just enough for fresh air, not enough for anyone to get in or out. What do you think? My dad asks, as we stand in my new room, surrounded by moving boxes. I know it's smaller than your old one. It's perfect, I tell him, and I mean it. The room faces the front yard, where I can see anyone approaching the house. There's no tree near my window, like at our old place. No hiding spots, no blind corners. My new school knows about what happened. The principal, counselors, and my teachers have all been briefed. I have a special code word that anyone picking me up must provide, and a panic button app on the phone my parents finally decided I was old enough to have. I create my own safety systems too, secret phrases that mean different things, just between me and my parents. If mom says, we should get pizza tonight, it means everything is normal. If she says, let's have pasta, it means something's wrong, but she can't say it directly. Dad has his own codes. Great weather today means all clear. Looks like rain means be on alert. My therapist, Dr. Chen, says these systems are healthy coping mechanisms as long as they don't control my life. It's your brain's way of creating order from chaos, she explains during one of our twice-weekly sessions. The important thing is that these safety measures help you feel secure without preventing you from living normally. Some days are better than others. I still have nightmares about Mrs. Patterson standing over my bed, still flinch when strangers get too close in public places. I've memorized every exit in my school, my favorite stores, even at Dr. Chen's office. I notice things other kids don't, adults who watch children too closely, vans that drive by multiple times, people who ask too many personal questions. Hypervigilance, Dr. Chen calls it. It's a common response to trauma. With time, it should become less intense. 5 years pass. I'm 14 now, and the nightmares only come once or twice a month instead of every night. I still use the code words with my parents, still check the security system before bed, but I can go to sleepovers at friends' houses now without panicking. I can walk to the corner store with other kids from the neighborhood. Last summer, I started volunteering with a child safety organization that visits elementary schools. We teach kids about tricky people and warning signs, adults who ask for help, who offer special treats, who try to keep secrets. I don't tell my own story, but I use what I learned from it. Trust your instincts, I tell them. If something feels wrong, even if you can't explain why, listen to that feeling. After one presentation, a quiet girl with braided hair approaches me while the other kids line up to leave. The man who picks up my little brother from daycare gives him candy and says not to tell their mom, she whispers. Is that a tricky person? I alert the program coordinator immediately. 2 weeks later, we learn that the girl's disclosure led to the arrest of her mother's boyfriend, who had been planning to take her brother out of state. You saved that little boy, my mom says when I tell her, tears in her eyes. You turned what happened to you into something good. The letter arrives on my 15th birthday. My parents debate whether to show it to me, but ultimately decide I should choose for myself. Mrs. Patterson died in prison from cancer, and her last request was that I receive her final message. You don't have to read it, my dad says, placing the envelope on the kitchen table. We can throw it away right now. I stare at my name written in that familiar handwriting, the same handwriting that documented my every move, my fears, my vulnerabilities, in that notebook years ago. I want to read it, I decide. The letter is short. She apologizes for the trauma she caused me, explains that her actions were inexcusable regardless of her circumstances. She writes that she spent her final years helping authorities identify other trafficking networks across the country. The last line reads, I hope someday you find peace in a world that failed to protect you. You deserved better than what I almost did to you. I fold the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. Are you okay? My mom asks, watching me closely. Yes, I say, and I'm surprised to realize it's true. She doesn't have power over me anymore. On my 16th birthday, my parents take me to dinner at my favorite restaurant. After dessert, my dad clears his throat, looking unusually serious. We want to tell you something, he says. Something we've never fully explained about. What happened? My mom reaches across the table for my hand. The FBI told us how close it was. Mrs. Patterson had already arranged for you to be taken the following week. The van was scheduled. The buyers, her voice breaks. The buyers had already paid a deposit. If you hadn't noticed those men that day, if you hadn't seen the boxes, my dad can't finish the sentence. We would have come home to an empty house, my mom whispers, and the statistics for finding children after the first 48 hours. I squeeze her hand. But you didn't. I'm here. I'm safe. That night, lying in bed, I think about how different my life could have been, how one moment of curiosity peeking through Mrs. Patterson's kitchen window when I saw those men changed everything. How easily I could have disappeared without a trace. I understand now what my childhood self couldn't fully grasp. I understand that evil doesn't always look like monsters in the dark. Sometimes it looks like a grandmother with cookies and bedtime stories. Sometimes it hides behind smiles and special soap and rules that seem strange but harmless. I'm not the same person I was before that Tuesday morning when I saw those photographs. I never will be. But I'm alive, and I'm helping other children stay safe, and maybe that's the best revenge against people like Mrs. Patterson and her trafficking ring. They tried to make me a victim. Instead, they made me a survivor.